A mindfulness webinar for military. This webinar that I watched was about meditation for coping with difficult emotions for veterans or soldiers or their family members. The author of this webinar was the TAPS Institute for Arthur Hope and Healing that was presented by Heather Stang. In the background on this webinar, it discusses how mindfulness can help people cope with grief and emotions when a loved one dies. In the webinar, the speaker discusses the mindfulness and grief system, specifically on how to be unstuck when initial shock of being told that someone has died while in the military. In this system, people suffering from grief learn how mindfulness techniques can allow them to learn how to care for their grieving body, or otherwise become unstuck when faced with the shock of hearing of a loved one dying. Here is the mindfulness and grief system. Here you can show that when people suffer a loss, it's important for them to learn how to care for their grieving body. Part of learning for caring for their body is being compassionate to themselves, learning how to be present in the moment when they learn about the loss. This takes courage to be able to face this unknown world that they will be going through. They will have to be vulnerable. And part of learning how to do this is learning how to be mindful. Mindfulness helps the person learn how to be present and actually feel the emotions that they are experiencing when they hear about a loss. This is important for people in the military who usually are experiencing a high op tempo in the military and do not have time to be present. They are told to be resilient. They are told to learn how to drive on with the mission. And sometimes these behaviors, though useful in the military, can sometimes hinder someone as they learn how to cope with a loss. Emotion and mindfulness for the grief and loss in the military community is very important. Dealing with the sadness is hard for anyone, but it's specifically hard for those in the military. Sometimes, for people in the military, a military comrade who died in battle, it can cause survivor guilt or a sense of remorse for having survived. People will feel a sense of closeness that was had with just a fellow service member. Part of being an identity of a team when someone dies can be experienced when you're a soldier. Also, the physical loss of just the person. Knowing that there's one person lost, their position is now being filled by someone else, can be very difficult for those in the military. So the primary focus of this support is to incorporate mindfulness techniques to use initially to handle the emotions surrounding the shock of notification. This is based on the philosophy Heather Stang said in her webinar that suffering usually equals pain times resistance. The resistance is what we do physically by trying not to experiencing the grief that we are experiencing in the present moment. Meditation can help with this initial shock, and it can help soldiers specifically who hear about a loss. In meditation, grief and loss individuals will learn how to be present with the reality that the person is gone. Meditation teaches the person how to stop forcing them to get over the loss with the intent, in the long run, this will help the person suffer loss. The relationship that the person has with those who died are over. They can't change this. This is a harsh reality for soldiers and family members who take pride in their mental toughness and their ability to be resilient. If a soldier or family member of a soldier dies within a unit, the entire military community suffers. It is essential to notify the unit or organization 24 hours after notifying the next of kin. The official notification will go through a town hall facilitated by the chaplain and the commander. In this meeting, the attendees often suffer shock that affects the body physically. It is important that the commander have someone who can teach mindfulness and grief techniques. These techniques will help stabilize people as they use the available support services to help them deal with the loss long term. The team members responsible for dealing with grief are the brigade chaplain, the commander, the family readiness coordinator, and the military family life counselor, or the grief counselor assigned to the unit. In the military, due to the high up tempo, members often shut down or cut off their emotions in order to continue the mission. This behavior often causes people to suffer more extreme loss weeks and years after the initial loss. The counselor will be on site to provide meditation techniques which will allow members to recognize their grief is normal and actually put stress on their body. Grief is a personal experience, and everyone responds differently to loss. Some people show grief in a way that can be seen and felt by people around them. Others do not. It is important not to assume that everything or something is wrong or not wrong with someone outwardly when they're mourning. It simply means that loss is handled differently. It's important to know that loss can physically affect us. We can get stomach aches, headaches, pain around the heart area, insomnia, fatigue, dizziness, trembling, panic attacks. Emotionally, there's shock, disbelief, numbness, anxiety, confusion, frustration, depression, guilt, loneliness, anger, and even detachment. Behavioral, we assume people crying, pacing, staring, but there's also forgetting things, loss of interest, poor focus, too much or too little, isolating, obsessing, worrying. But in the military, it's even working hard, being more on tune, doing their job 100%. Things that we would think that are wonderful are actually things sometimes somebody uses to help them not deal with the grief that they're experiencing. Feelings can come and go, and a lot of people sometimes find that they are denying that a loss even happens. It's important for people to understand that what they're experiencing is normal, and the one way to do that is mindfulness techniques that help them learn how to be present with what they are feeling. There are many meditations that can help people deal with grief. Self-care is very important. I feel that meditation is a form of self-care that allows you to be kind to yourself. It allows you to experience the feelings that come with loss. They let the emotions come and go. This emotional pain can be very difficult and hard for people, especially soldier members who are not used to dealing with this. So it's important for them to have techniques that can allow them to grieve. And I feel like meditation is a way that they can move their body and be one while also dealing with their grief. One of these interventions is called a body scan exercise. It helps people start a dialogue with their body and helps them tend to it with compassion. They understand how their grief is actually flowing through their body physically. They start to observe the sensations that they're feeling that they might not have otherwise felt because they were too busy continuing with their mission. Body scans can be done laying down, sitting up. But in this example, I am going to have you sitting down. Begin by making yourself comfortable. Sit in a chair and allow your back to be straight, but not stiff, with your feet on the ground. You can also do this practicing standing, or if you prefer, you can lie down. But I encourage you to stay sitting. Have your hands gently resting in your lap at your side and allow your eyes to close or to remain open with a soft gaze. Take several long, slow breaths, breathing in fully and exhaling slowly. Breathe in through your nose and out through your nose. Feel your stomach expand on and inhale and relax as you let go as you exhale. Begin to let go of noise around you. Begin to shift your attention from outside to inside yourself. If you're distracted by sounds in the room, simply notice this and bring your focus back to your breathing. Now slowly bring your attention down to your feet. Begin observing sensations in your feet. You might want to wiggle your toes a little, feeling your toes against your socks or shoes. Just notice without judgment. You might imagine sending your breath down to your feet, as if breath is traveling through your nose to the lungs and through the abdomen all the way down to your feet, and then back up again and through your nose and lungs. Perhaps you don't feel anything at all. That is fine too. Just allow yourself to feel the sensations of not feeling anything right now. When you are ready, allow your feet to dissolve in your mind's eye and move your attention to your ankles, calves, knees, and thighs. Observe the sensation you're experiencing through your legs. Breathe into and breathe out of the legs. If your mind begins to wander during this exercise, gently notice this without judgment and bring your mind back to noticing the sensations in your legs. If you notice any discomfort, pain, or stiffness, don't judge this, just simply notice it. Observe how all sensations rise and fall, shift and change, moment to moment. Notice how no sensation is permanent. Just observe and allow the sensation to be in the moment, just as they are. Breathe into and out from the legs. Then, on the next out-breath, allow the legs to dissolve in your mind and move to the sensations in your lower back and pelvis, softening and releasing as you breathe in and out. Slowly move your attention up to your mid-back and upper back. Become curious about the sensations here. You may become aware of sensations in the muscle, temperature, or points of contact with furniture or the bed. With each out-breath, you may let go of tension you are carrying and then very gently shift your focus to your stomach and all the internal organs. Perhaps you notice feeling the clothing, the process of digestion, or the belly just rising or falling with each breath. If you notice opinions arising about these areas, gently let these go and return to noticing the sensations. As you continue to breathe, bring your awareness to the chest and heart region. Just notice your heartbeat. Observe how the chest rises during the inhale and how the chest falls during the exhale. Let go of any judgment that may rise. On the next out-breath, shift the focus to your hands and your fingertips. See if you can channel your breathing in and out of this area as if you are breathing into and out from your hands. And then on the next out-breath, shift the focus from bringing your awareness up into your arms. Observe the sensations or lack of sensations that may be occurring there. You may notice some difference between left arm and the right arm. No need to judge this. As you exhale, you may experience the arm softening and release tension. Continue to breathe and shift focus to the neck, shoulder, and throat region. This is an area where we have lots of tension. But with the sensations here, it could be tightness, rigidity, or holding. You may notice the shoulders moving along with the breath. Let go of any thoughts or stories you are telling yourself about this area. As you breathe, you may feel tension rolling off your shoulders. And now let your attention expand out to include the entire body as a whole. Bring into your awareness the top of your head down to the bottom of your toes. Feel the gentle rhythm of the breath as it moves through the body. As you come to the end of this practice, take a deep, full breath. Taking in all the energy of this practice, exhale fully. And when you are ready, open your eyes and return your attention to the present moment. As you become fully alert and awake, consider how you have become more in tune and present with your body today. Thank you. Mindfulness interventions to help get unstuck. A mindfulness garden. In the military, we often have a ritual of planting a tree in honor of those who have died. These are usually in a public place on a military post. A unit as a whole can create a mindfulness garden. But I think something we could also do as soldiers and family members is create our own mindfulness garden, or just plant a tree or have a flower somewhere in a room that can be easily accessed. At this plant, this is our time, this is our free area to just let ourselves grieve. We can talk to this tree, we can talk about our experiences, how we're feeling. We can also record our thoughts in a journal. But the biggest thing that we're going to do while here is allow it to be a free space to experience what we're suffering right now as we grieve. So breathe in Breathe out. I am free to experience what I'm experiencing. Breathe in. Breathe out. And continue this. Breathing in and breathing out. Gently closing your eyes and allowing yourself to feel. This can be difficult. You may be crying, but it's okay. When we're busy, we don't allow ourselves to feel, which is actually resistance to what's actually going on. At this very moment, we are allowing ourselves to be present. After 5 minutes, we're going to stop. Set your timer on a watch, anything. And after 5 minutes, you'll hear the beep and you'll need to stop. After that, I want you to take out a journal and take out a pen and just write freely. Once again, set your timer for 5 minutes. And you just write what comes to your head, what you were experiencing, what went on. And when these 5 minutes are done, I want you to stop. For me, this is a very relaxing. I write. Sometimes I find I feel worse. Sometimes I feel better. But the important thing that is happening is that I am letting out my feelings. And once I'm done, I close my journal and I put it back by my plant or in the mindfulness garden where I can pay tribute and honor that person that's fallen. And then I return to my mission, leaving the worry, leaving the sadness there, knowing that I can return tomorrow for my 10 minutes where I can pay tribute, where I can experience my grief, but also still continue to my mission as a soldier. In grief, acknowledging that pain and suffering can be physically felt through the body is an important development consideration in healthy meditation. It is important to turn towards the real and true emotions in the moment. We have to recognize that this is a reality. We actually feel them in our body. They're not just up in our head. One way we can do this is through RAIN. R stands for recognizing that you do have intense emotions. A is being willing to be present to your experience no matter how pleasant. Whatever you notice, you have to allow it to be. Then I is to unhook yourself from an object or story or a belief that you had so that you can witness your emotions that you are feeling with kindness. You can't judge yourself. Don't let yourself be. Often you will feel this as tightness through the chest. Your mouth will clench. But you have to allow yourself. You're not weak when you experience emotions. You can still be a soldier and can experience your emotions. Finally, N, nurture. Offer yourself mercy and care as you would an ideal best friend. Words of kindness, a gentle caress, or acknowledging of how hard it is in ways to practice meditation or just to be mindful. In grief, it is important to not avoid emotions and allow yourself mercy and not be afraid to admit that emotions are scary. Yes, you can kill an enemy, but emotions are an unknown enemy you aren't used to. They're scary, but just like the enemy on a battlefield, you can face these and deal with them and come out strong. Your old thoughts and behaviors prior to the loss are not applicable. So do not run from this change. Just know that this is a place of unknown. There are cultural differences that I found in grief. Specifically, I looked at the Hispanics and Baha'is. Hispanics are from the Roman Catholic Church, and they believe the soul will continue to live after physical body has died. Their pain and physical ailments are considered sometimes to be a test of faith. At one's deathbed, the family will call in a priest to perform the last rites where he will anoint the person who is dying with holy oil, hear their confession, offer absolution, communion, and provide a blessing for them and their family. The Baha'is also believe that the physical body may die, but the soul continues to live on. At the time of death, the Baha will bury their dead within an hour's travel distance from the place they died. Prior to the burial, the bodies are wrapped in a shroud wearing a Baha ring. The only formal requirement of a funeral is the recitation of the prayer of the dead. It is important to note that the Baha'is do not believe in embalming or cremation. There are also developmental considerations. In America, mindfulness research is focused on the Caucasian subject. It is essential to create mindfulness interventions for clients that take in the client's cultural considerations. Mindfulness is also shown to provide positive outcomes, but researchers are unsure specifically why. Researchers studied total practice, duration, practice frequency, and practice quality, and found that it is essential for instructors to provide individual tailored programs to improve quality of practice versus creating a group standard. And that is why I've given you some different ideas for how you can meditate. But ultimately, you need to find your own and what works for you. Here are some community online resources. The Center for Recovered Mindfulness. It's a mindfulness group for people who are struggling. There's Coping with Grief and Loss. It is a good community online resource group that defines grief and helps people understand how it affects the body and mind. There's the Columbus Mindful Meditation Meetup that has an online resources, but also has a meetup physically in Columbus. Grief Counseling, a site that provides phone numbers and community resources for starting grief counseling with an individual therapist. And then Heather Stang's actual website, Mindfulness and Grief. This is a website managed by the author where she has mindfulness podcasts and different online resources that you can use for your own meditation. There are some more community online resources. Online Meditation Grief Community, where you can enroll in meditation classes and talk to your own loss and grief community. There's the Riverflow Yoga of Columbus. This is a yoga studio focused on restoring wellness and balance into individuals' life through movement and meditation. TAPS, Mind and Body and Spirit. This is where grief can affect the whole body, it teaches. It is important to take turn to learn how to meditate and find balance to help alleviate suffering and live life with ease. The Open Hope Forum is an online forum to support people who have experienced loss and help them cope with their pain, and also learn how to invest in their future. And finally, Urban Dharma Georgia, Columbus, Georgia, is a free meditation online group that actually meets in Columbus at the Art of Yoga, but they also have a ton of wonderful resources for you to sign up to and learn about meditation. Here's some military resources. The Defense Center of Excellence Outreach Center. This Department of Defense site provides trained professional health resources and consultants that can help people who have experienced psychological health as well as traumatic brain injury. They're given hour. This site provides free mental health services and care for military. Hope for Warriors provides medical care, mental health counseling, professional training and education, and physical conditioning and transition services for wounded, ill, Marines and soldiers. The Military Families United is a national link to help honor the fallen and provide support to the families of those who fight and serve. The Military One Source is a website that provides military support after loss. It helps people understand grief and also know the finances and legal counseling is available to help soldiers move on. There is also the National Family Bereavement Study. This is a wonderful site that has research that has done on uniformed services about traumatic stress as well as grief and loss. It constantly is updated with new resources that are available for family members. The Society of Military Widows is a nonprofit organization dedicated to providing grief support for women whose husbands died while on active duty. And they are also either a service-connected illness or during disability. Tragedy Assistance Program for Survivors is a tragedy assistance resource for anyone who suffered a loss of a military loved one, regardless of the relationship to the deceased. TRICARE, this site provides primary health care as well as mental health counseling for soldiers and their family members. And finally, When Families Grieve is a wonderful site that has families' personal stories about cope with death of a loved one. And here are my references that I have used to help create this mindfulness webinar. Just a short webinar that teaches people about mindfulness and how important it is to help in the initial shock of finding out that a loved one has died in the armed forces. This can be used for family or soldiers. And finally, my last page of references.